from PRX.
Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, fans of boba tea everywhere, it's time for Sleep With Me. You may say, what in the boba? Do you even know those, do you know one thing that really gets on Boba Fett's nerves? I'd say when I mention Boba Fett and boba balls in the same sentence. What about does Bo Bridges makes boba balls for Boba Fett? There's got to be a verb or something in there. What's a verb? Anyway, what am I talking about? It's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. I just thought of it, though. It's maybe balances or I'll get back to it, hopefully, in the intro. So I'll be back. And in a second, it's time for Sleep With Me. Once again, the podcast that puts you to sleep. Sleep With Me podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are the things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations. Hey, everybody, it's Drew Scooter here. It's time to talk about tonight's sponsor. The sponsor I'm sleeping in every single night, ideally, except when I'm out of town, and then I'm missing it. And that's my Helix mattress. You could take the mattress quiz at helixsleep.com/sleep. See what mattress you get matched with. I sleep in the Helix at Dusk Luxe. And when I took the quiz, that's a mattress I got matched with because I sleep on my side, I sleep on my stomach. I don't like to be hot and stuffy at night, so I love the cooling features. And I know from my experience with traveling that no other mattress fits my sleep needs. There's no other place I'd rather be than in my bed in the sweet, sweet arms of my Helix Dusk Luxe. Because even when I've stayed in really, really nice hotels, I haven't felt like the mattress met my needs and how I sleep. That's what I love about Helix. I mean, you take the quiz, it matches how your sleep and feel preferences. You could take it with your partner. Then the mattress comes straight to your door, shipped free of charge. You just bring it inside and you set it up. So I love my Helix. It's a part of my long-term plans, man. It's like a long-term relationship because sleep's important to me and being comfortable in bed's important to me. So you should check out that Helix quiz. Everybody, this is an exclusive offer for Sleep With Me listeners. It's better than what you find on the public website, so pay attention. Go to helixsleep.com/sleep for 27% off site-wide, plus 2 free Dream Pillows with mattress purchase, plus a free bedding bundle, 2 Dream Pillows, a sheet set, and a mattress protector with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. That's helixsleep.com/sleep for 27% off site-wide, plus 2 free Dream Pillows with mattress purchase, plus a free bedding bundle, 2 Dream Pillows, a sheet set, and mattress protector with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. helixsleep.com/sleep. Thanks, everybody. Hey, everybody, Scoots, this is the time that I used to, try to convince you to sign up and support the show right now. You know, those of you that are listening and already know how much you value Sleep With Me, to tell you to go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. But my messages just haven't been working. So now I'm just using listeners' words of why they supported the show. So if you could listen closely, maybe you'll hear something in their words that'll say, oh yeah, of course I should support Sleep With Me. This comes from Celeste. I discovered Sleep With Me from a Google search while I was on vacation, desperately trying to get to sleep. I made the choice to support the show because I don't ever want it to go away. The podcast is unique. There's nothing like it. Gentle, funny, weird, and kind. Makes me feel held somehow, like there's something I can count on to come gently by my side when I'm struggling to go to sleep or back to sleep. I can hardly even express how valuable it is to me practically and emotionally. I feel proud to support it. I like thinking I help others maintain access to the podcast. I also like thinking that my monthly contributions are a meaningful thank you to Scooter and everyone that works on the show. So thank you so much, Celeste. And yeah, if you relate to what Celeste is saying, like, don't wait, like Celeste said. If you're in a position to support the show, you relate to what Celeste said, support it. I don't need to convince you. I just got to make sure you hear me to take action. So sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Thank you so much, Celeste. Oh, Mystery Bart, a lot of people help out on the show. Who are they?
Chris Posty Poster Son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes. Carl W. the Legend. Also edits episodes. Ashley, Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound or on the website. I am the Mystery Bart. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at jonathanmann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. Rusty Biscuit, Lois, Anna like banana. Leah does the transcripts.
Thanks, Mystery Bart. Don't forget, if you're looking for access to Sleep With Me Plus, to access to ad-free episodes, but you're not in a financial position to support the show, you can earn those for free by referring people to free podcasts at our referral program, sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer. If you're like, yeah, I can't afford to support the show, but I really want some of that sweet, sweet bonus content on Sleep With Me Plus, sign up for our referral program and send me an email. Thanks, everybody. What do you say we slow it down and get on with the show? Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'll do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, things on your mind, feelings, anything like emotionally coming up for you. So thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature or routine. And I just got distracted. Sorry about that. My mind just petered out, just kind of like this podcast peters out. So whatever's keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off it. Stuff. It could be nothing on your mind. Last night I had a baffling one where I said, "What is going on here?" Well, I play by all the sleep rules. Luckily, there's no rules. That's just what people say. All the what do they call it? All the sleep hygiene things. So whatever is keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off of that. And I'd like to keep you company if I could. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. Oh, so creaky are my dulcet tones. More creaky than dulcet. Pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I have a tendency to use filler words, muttering, stammering, and then peter out. So, I mean, that's like a sound effect of an old-fashioned car on a cartoon. I've never been compared to that, but I'm sure people have thought about it. They say, well, I can't put my finger on it, but Scooter reminds me of something, not someone. I see one of those cars with, like in a comedy where they're trying to, you got to wind it up on the front of it, and then it makes a noise a bit like a train. It putters, and then it stalls out, but it doesn't kind of stall. It like, oh yeah, wasn't there a car on one of those cartoons that like, it even made that sound and it had a face? So yeah, I guess you're right. I guess I am a bit like that imaginary cartoon car. But if you're new, a couple things to know. I'm here to keep you company as you fall asleep, that's very different than most podcasts, even most sleep audio. And so you might find this podcast, it's just not for everybody, but I hope it works for you. The only thing is it does take a few tries to get used to. And that's what most regular listeners say, which is like hundreds of thousands of people have said. And I guess I'm proud of this, that they gave it a few tries. I'm proud of them. They said, yeah, it took 2 or 3 tries before I realized you just kind of barely listen to Scooter. It's kind of like a passive listening. It's different than passive listening or background noise, but it's just like out of focus listening. And then I became a regular listener because it helped take my mind off stuff and put me to sleep. So this is a podcast you don't really listen to. You may not like it. Totally normal. You may be skeptical or doubtful. Makes a lot of sense to me. So those things are true. What else is, so the other thing is this doesn't really put you to sleep. I'm here to keep you company while you drift off. The reason the podcast's over an hour, so you have reassurance. You say, I got plenty of time to fall asleep. Scoots is going to be here to keep me company. And here's the thing. I'm going to be here to keep you company whether you're awake or asleep. I'm here for you. So if you can't sleep, I'm going to be here for over an hour to the very end. And you could queue up episode after episode after episode if you need it. But if you're asleep, I'm still here. I'm still here keeping you company. I'm kind of like on call. So those are a couple other things. Another thing that can throw new listeners off is the structure of the show. Show starts off with a greeting, so hopefully you feel seen and welcomed. Then there's business, listener support, and then the sponsors that support the podcast to be free. Then there's the intro, which we're in right now. And the intro goes from around, minute 6 or minute 8 to about minute 20 or 22. And the intro is essentially a show within a show. But it's a show within a show within a show. Because what I mean by that is, so the intro is in the show. So that's the first within the show. Then the next doll down, those nesting dolls. So the intro also, it has a couple purposes. It introduces you, the new listener, to the show. Or for the regular listener, what up, regular listeners? Or what about semi-new listeners or coming back, listeners on a comeback? That's a setup. A setback's a setup for a comeback. So I'm glad to have you back here. So those, but either way, so the intro does 2 things. It introduces people to the show, but it also gives you some distance, some wind down time. Because this podcast, even when it puts you to sleep, it keeps you company as you drift off to sleep. So you could kind of use the intro in different ways once you get used to the show. 3% of people now skip the intro and start the show at 20 minutes. Then another few thousand people listen to story-only episodes on Patreon. But for the majority of listeners, they listen to the intro as they're either in bed getting comfortable or they're out of bed either getting ready for bed or doing some sort of wind down bedtime routine. And the podcast kind of serves as a supplement to ease you into bedtime and give you like a kind of smooth landing pad. So that, you just don't, because I just haven't had any luck falling asleep instantly. That's what I mean. So that's the intro. Then there's business between the intro and the show. That's just how podcast business structure works. Then there's a story. Tonight will be our recap of an episodically modular series. I guess it's a serialized series, Mandalorian on Mandalorian. Now, if you don't watch that show or you do watch the show, don't worry. These will be... You don't have to have watched the show. There may be spoilers because I am going to talk about the episode, but in a pretty indirect way. So then that'll be my talking about Mandalorian. Then there'll be thank yous and good nights. So that's the structure of the show. The reason I make the show is because you deserve a good night's sleep. That's what I truly believe. and that our world will be a better place if you get the rest you need and deserve. That'd be a good thing for everybody. I mean, it'd be nice. And the other reason is because I've been there. I know how it feels there in the deep, dark night, tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep. So that's a couple of things. The other things, it's just my mind tends to, go off on tangents. That's another reason I guess I'm make this show. Like I do later in the episode talk about Boba Fett and boba balls. But I didn't think about it as a tongue twister with Beau Bridges. So you have Beau Bridges, a sibling of Jeff Bridges, not related to Jeff Daniels, though I get that mixed up all the time. Common mistake for me. So that's okay. I mean, I'm sure it's not okay with the Bridges brothers. Now, what was the other one? I was thinking whenever I talk about the Bridges, then I got to talk about somebody else, but my brain just went blank. Oh, the Bacon brothers. And my imagine, so I do write Bacon Brothers in Beau Bridges, Bacon Brothers fan fiction, a figure named Beau Bacon. He's the forgotten Bacon brother. He says, I'm 1 degree of separation from Kevin Bacon, but I'm not in the Bacon Brothers band. So, but then I was thinking about, okay, Beau Bacon and Beau Bridges balance boba balls on Boba Fett. Is that's not really a tongue twister. That's something I'd like to see. Or they could bake boba. I don't think you bake boba balls anyway, but they could bake boba balls. Beau Bridges bakes boba balls. You're right. We do need some sort of modify. What is that called? Is that an adjective or an adverb? Adjectives end in ly, right? Beautifully balanced boba balls. Beautifully balanced. Now I'm trying to find another B word, put before blossom. What's a B word that starts banana blossom boba balls? They say scoots them from the Institute of Tongue Twisters International. Oh, okay, go ahead. I got you on the line here. You normally, that's too many words to be in a tongue twister. We don't have a hard and fast rule, but that's way too many words. Oh, really? Huh. That's good. Where's your headquarters? Is it in my imagination? The International Institute of, would you say Tongue Twisters? Tongue Twisters International? It is in your imagination. Okay, so let's run through this then. Beau Bridges bakes banana boba. There you go. My tongue was twisted there. Scooter, your tongue's twisted a lot of the time, though. Okay, you got me on a technicality. Beau Bridges bakes boba balls. Banana bacon blossom, balanced banana bacon blossom boba balls. Beautifully balanced banana bacon boba balls. Before betrothed, could boba balls be betrothed to does betrothed just particularly mean engaged, or could it mean like I've promised these, you say sorry, like say, okay, so let's say Beau Bridges is sitting around his house baking boba balls, and the Beau Bacon comes over and Jeff Daniels, and they say, Beau, what's that smell? Oh, I'm baking boba balls. Wow, it smells like banana. Oh, yeah, beautifully balanced banana bacon boba balls is banana blossom, actually. But what's a banana blossom, Beau? By the way, this is getting ridiculous. This is why I love making this show. And then you say, can I have some? No, they've been betrothed to Boba Fett. Okay, but could you just say boba? No, because then people might think I'm giving boba balls to just boba. These particular boba balls are betrothed to Boba Fett. There's the invoice right here. So you sold them to Boba Fett? No, because Boba Fett does not work with money. Boba Fett works with a more ancient system of So they're betrothed to Boba Fett in a long time away, galaxy far, far away, a long time ago. Bo, are you mixed up with Doc Brown again? I am. He showed up with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he said, robes, where we're going, we don't need any robes. So we just need boba balls. And I said, you're in the right place. That's my Bo Bridges hobby, making boba balls. I'm the first person to bake boba balls, as a matter of fact. Oh, really? This is so interesting. How'd you get into baking boba balls, Bo? Let me set it up. Welcome to the Bacon Brothers podcast. I'm Bo Bacon. I'm here talking about things I encounter during my day, and I'm here recapping the time I showed up at Bo Bridges' house and found him baking boba balls for Boba Fett. I'm sorry. Is your brother Brad Bacon around? Why are you asking about Brad Bacon, Bo? Well, I just remember, you remember when he was called Bad Brad Bacon? I do, Bo. Yeah, I just think that's cool. Like, is he the cool, like, I know, Kevin's, the main Bacon brother. Oh, thanks a lot, Bo. I thought we were friends. Well, no, I mean, not, you're the one at my house. You're the one that gets to taste my my test, my test bakes. I just like saying Bad Brad Bacon, and I know Scooter does too. Okay, Bo. Anyway, I'm here with Bo Bridges. He's making beautifully balanced bacon, banana blossom, boba balls, betrothed to Boba Fett. Before we get off, I just wondered if you could think of any other B words we could gratuitously slip into here. Also, we've learned we're in violation of the tongue twister. The Tongue Twister International, they've got to be like, wait a second, no one's spun any tongue. Is there tongue twisting tales? That could be my next podcast. I think it's called Sleep With Me, Scoots. Oh, yeah. But I don't always use the same letters. My tongue twists on its own. It's the funniest thing. I'm always tongue twisted, but I can't fold my tongue into a taco, like whatever, I don't know, percentage of the population can do that. Bo Bacon can. What about bad Brad Bacon? What about, could we get a word, like, could we fit a Bard in there? No. Buttery boba balls. Okay, you're right. It petered out. Just like I said at the beginning of the podcast, eventually it peters out. So thank you so much, Bad Brad Bacon, Bo Bacon, Bo Bridges, Boba Fett, Boba Balls, everybody everywhere. I appreciate your time. This podcast can get silly. I mean, but I'm here to barely put a smile on your face. That was an example. It was if you were barely laughing, that was an accident. I was just really intrigued because I was picturing like not in an ostentatious Hollywood Hills house, just halfway up the hill with good view, windows open, boba ball steams going out the window. Bo Bridges is in an apron, and then Bo Bacon shows up. Boba, and then somewhere in a galaxy far, far away, Boba's, waiting, saying, when I got to get those boba balls. Fennec, go out. Has the delivery come? What time did Doc Brown and Obi-Wan say they were going to be here? Well, they had to stop at the No Robes shop. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. This podcast obviously is very different, not for everybody, but I really hope it can barely make you laugh or at least take your mind off of stuff and keep you company while you drift off. I appreciate your time. I work very hard. I yearn and I strive. Thanks again for coming by. And here's a couple of ways I'm able to be here for you twice a week for free. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots. I want to make this short and sweet. If Sleep With Me helped you find rest or ease in the deep, dark night, I don't know if you knew this, but the main way we keep making this show and the main way you could support the show when you say, I love this podcast, I want it to be here for me whenever I need it, How can I support it? Scoots, how can I help you? Because you help me so much. If you're asking that question, the best way to help the podcast is by going to sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus and joining Sleep With Me Plus, because it's a two-way street at Sleep With Me Plus. You're going to get the best listening experience you possibly can. There's ad-free full episodes, story-only episodes. If you listen all night, Sleep With Me Plus is much better for that. If you like to pick episodes out of our entire catalog, so if you're saying to yourself, man, this podcast helps me out so much, how can I help it back? I want to feel good about it. I already feel good about it. You could do that at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Thank you. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever is keeping you awake. It could be thoughts, things you're thinking about, things on your mind. I don't know, my mind just went blank as soon as I said things on your mind. It could be that, though. You say, that happens to me a lot. I say, why can't I remember that? And then I try to remember it, and it's like trying to find something in one of my, my closet or a pile, or, when I put stuff down. And I say, what happened to that letter that I needed to open, that I needed to think about opening? You heard that tangent a few months ago. Anyway. Whether it's thoughts you're thinking about, that could be from the past, present, or future. Feelings that come up related to those thoughts. Obviously, I've had a few. But it could just be feelings that are there, sensations or physical, anything physical going on with you. Schedule changes. I talked to Gavin yesterday, and a lot of times Gavin's got to go to sleep at noon. And I hear from a lot of listeners that have to go to sleep at those times of day. It's not easy, especially when it's irregular, right? Could be some other thing, or it could be something you just don't know. Whatever is keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off of that and keep you company while you drift off. And what I propose to do, and what you could see if you're willing to come along, is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky dulcet tones. Oh, so creaky are my dulcet tones. Pointless meanders. Superfluous tangents. So I'm going to go off topic. I'm going to get mixed up. And all that stuff. All to keep you company while you fall asleep. So, I don't know. My mind just went blank again. Oh, yeah. I guess I kind of said... So here's a couple things. If you're new that you would want to know, or you might want to know, this podcast does not work for everybody. So just give it a few tries. And that's not coming from me. That's coming from hundreds of thousands of people that said, hey, it took, believe it or not, hundreds of thousands of people have told me, it took 2 or 3 tries to get used to you. And I said, yeah, that sounds about right. Because, of course, if somebody told you about this podcast, you say, well, it's supposed to put me to sleep. But what do you mean? Not sure about this guy's voice, and he doesn't seem to, this content seems to be, he plays loose and fast with his content, and I say, you're correct about that. So just see how it goes. So that's one thing. If you're skeptical, doubtful, or unsure, that's a normal response to the show. But I hope it can put you to sleep, or at least to keep you company while you fall asleep. This is also a podcast you don't really listen to. You just kind of barely pay attention to it. I barely engage you. And I can give you something to kind of listen to while you drift off. You say, oh, okay, I can listen to this, and it takes me, ideally, I barely distract you from whatever's keeping you awake. And then, the other thing is, not only is this a podcast you don't really listen to, it's also a sleep podcast that doesn't put you to sleep. This is strange, but I'm here to keep you company as you drift off. So I'm really just here to be your bedtime bore teller. First time I made that word up, maybe. But really, just to keep you company as you drift off. That's why the shows are over an hour, so you have plenty of time. And if you can't sleep, I'm going to be here to the very end. So I'm here just as much to keep you company. I'm here to keep you company, whether you're awake or asleep, and whether you're listening or not. So really, hopefully you don't feel any pressure. No pressure to listen, no pressure to fall asleep. I'm going to be here for about an hour. I used to say that all the time. I don't know what part of the podcast I used to say that in. And maybe I already see Scooch, you say that right. Okay, yeah, I said it right at the beginning. I don't remember. It's okay. So those are a couple things. The other thing that throws people off, podcast listeners in particular, is the structure of the show. And the show's structured very deliberately, but also it's very malleable. So I'll tell you the normal structure and then how people use the show in different ways. So the show starts off with a greeting, so you feel welcome. Then it has resources for listeners and sponsors. That's how it's able to be here twice a week for free. Then there's an intro. And the intro goes from like a minute 6 or 8 to minute like 20 something. And that can really throw people off because you say, well, the intro is like 1/3 of the podcast. And I'd say, well, 20, 40, 60. Yeah, about 1/3 of the podcast. You're right. But the intro kind of serves two purposes. One, it introduces new listeners to the show. So I can tell you all this stuff. So you say, oh, okay, I was skeptical and doubtful. And now I still am, but at least I know what to expect. And I'm kind of getting relaxed here. So that's one purpose the intro serves, to introduce the show in a long-winded, meandering way with kindness, because it's really my job to earn your trust. You don't really owe me anything. Like, even listening 2 or 3 times, I just can ask it because, I hope I can put you to sleep. So, yeah, it's my job to build some rapport. So that's part of the intro too. But for regular listeners, what up, my regular listeners and all the pets, fishes and other pets out there, mammalian pets, and, warm-blooded or cold-blooded, I got a warm spot in my heart for you, as long as you're keeping a distance, cold-blooded beings. I can share my warmth metaphorically with you, but that's it. So, sorry, that was a tangent. But so the regular listeners, the podcast, the intro serves as part of their wind down routine. So you can listen as you're getting ready for bed, or as you're in bed drifting off, or as you're doing something else relaxing, even if it's just sitting around. I mean, that's pretty relaxing. I barely have the ability to do that, just lie around. But when I do, I say, wow, I should do this more often. Just lie on the floor. When you lie on the floor and look at the room upside down, like I say, this is great. Why don't I do this every day? I say, well, because as Popeye once said, I am who I am. And it's not like, so the intro, what was I saying? Oh, so it just gives you some distance from the day and eases you into bedtime. Because for most of us, we've tried other sleep solutions, right? And those are supposed to work right away. They're not as sustainable or realistic. And even Sleep With Me, it's only sustainable and realistic for the people it kind of fits like a puzzle piece with. So that's how the intro works. But some people skip the intro. They start the show at 20 minutes, about 3% of listeners. Then a few thousand people listen to story-only versions on our Patreon. And then some people listen all night, even though the podcast isn't really designed to be listened to all night. That's an option too. And then some people start the podcast when they wake up in the middle of the night or whatever. And other people listen during the day. So it's kind of like, you see, like first start off listening to the intro and then kind of see how it goes for you is the only advice I can give is see what works for you. Then there's business between the intro and the show. That's just how podcast structure works. It's called the mid-roll, even though it's not in the middle of the show. And those are the sponsors that, again, able to be here for you. Then there's a story. Tonight it'll be a crossover tribute episode to Orbiting Human Circus of the Air. brilliant and amazing podcast that I love so, so much. And I hope you discover it. And if you're still like using your phone right now, or you have a pen or paper, write down to subscribe or use the link in our show notes tomorrow to check out that show. It's going to change. It'll make your daytime almost as good as your bedtime, maybe even better. So that it'll be a meandering version of the season 2 premiere. So that's the story. It will be a bedtime story woven out of another podcast. Then there's thank yous at the end of the show. So that's the structure of the show. And the reason I make the show, I guess, is threefold. I usually say it's twofold, but tonight I was thinking it's threefold. It's like you deserve a good night's sleep. That's the main reason I make the show. You deserve a place where you can rest, get the rest you need, and ideally, live your life and have it more manageable, or even be in a place where you could flourish. So that's one reason. The other reason, too, is I've been there at night, tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep, all those things. So I know how it feels. I know the deep, dark desperation in the deep, dark night very well. And if I can offer any kind of salve or balm or distraction from that, some reassurance that you're not alone, that is like the greatest honor I could ever have in my life, really. I mean, besides being the parent of the coolest daughter in the world, but, so that's why I make the show. And the third thing is, I guess, it's the daytime, right? The daytime kind of sticks around at nighttime. And I was thinking of that false start. And then I was thinking of the word false fart. I'll be honest, so you can go ahead and bored giggle. For some reason that word makes most people giggle no matter what. But I was thinking about it when I said it. I was like, well, false farts are a thing that could keep me up at night. And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced the old false fart. There's probably another term for it, but I don't know why people don't just say, sorry, that like in a meeting or a conference or a Zoom nowadays, you say, no, that was a false fart. Just want to let everybody know that was my chair, or that was my elbow on the, whatever this linoleum is. Instead of, like, for me, if I do a false fart, then I say, oh boy, everybody's going to think it. Everybody's looking at me. Or poor Mildred. They're thinking Mildred did it. I hope, and I don't hope. I feel bad and I feel good that everybody's looking at Mildred. Maybe I should make another false fart. Don't you always have that one? That's usually how I do it. It's like, okay, let me wait a little while. Then I'll see if I can recreate the sound multiple times in a row so that people know it's not real, right? One time that happened in high school, and the teacher stopped teaching the class because he still didn't realize that it was that I was covering up my false fart with more false farts so that I would delineate that it was my shoe. This time it was the tip of, I think I must have had a new pair of boots or something. And if the tip of your boot, you scrape it on a linoleum floor, and they stopped the whole class and they said, do you need to go to and I said, no, it's my shoe. It wasn't actually embarrassing because it was so over the top. And the teacher was laughing, but not like it was one of those moments of relief. Like it was so obvious that it wasn't, even there was no negative feelings involved. And it was also funny because the teacher was just in hysterics, and the whole class was kind of like you just say, maybe they thought, wow, this kid has such self-esteem. He's just he's just letting his body take its natural course, which of course they did. I say, well, you don't really know me, obviously. But then I said, no, it's my shoe. And then I made the sound a couple more times. Sorry about that. I didn't even know about it. Wasn't trying to be, and it also wasn't from a teacher's perspective, you could think you were doing it to be disruptive, which at the time, I guess I was saying, I could have said, this is accidentally disruptive because of my first disruption. I didn't want you to think that was an actual eruption. It was just an unintentional disruption. So now I'm being disruptive to make it clear. You know what I'm saying? And that's the kind of stuff that can keep some of us up at night. I mean, right? You say, oh man, I wonder what people are thinking from that meeting. Like I was there to pitch, the newest, my idea about Blueberry's cousin and Count Chocula, that was, best friends with Count Chocula. And, I made that false fart. But I think they think it was real. But I guess, yeah, I mean, when you think about it on the reverse side, you really don't hold it against people. I don't think. I don't know. Maybe do I? Now that's going to. Are you the kind of person that holds false farts against people, Scooter? Well, and that's what's going to be going through my head tonight. But I think one thing that you're listening, if you get over these bore giggles, is that this kind of unites us, right? We've all been through that. And sometimes we've been through it on the real. You say, well, no, that was not false. It was unplanned for sure. So we've been there, and we've also all been there in the deep, dark night. So I'm glad you're here. Please give the show a few tries just to see if it can help you, because you deserve a good night's sleep. I'm glad you're here. I yearn and I strive to make the best possible show I can. And I really hope I can help you fall asleep. Thanks again for coming by. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. It's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake. That could be thoughts, like things on your mind. Maybe you're thinking about the past, the present, the future, or something, Could be, or nothing. I mean, let's not think about nothing. Nothing. Let's forget I said it. Thoughts, feelings could be emotions coming up for you, or left over from the day, or anticipating something. So feelings could be there, physical sensations, any and all of those three. It could be changes in routine or schedule. It could just be something baffling. You say, what's up with that? Except I don't normally say it in a calm way. But whatever's keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off that. I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. That's the first step. I guess technically I've already done that. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. Oh, so creaky are my tones. Creaky, yet dulcet. Eventually they become dulcet. So creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders. Those are like where I go off topic and get mixed up. Superfluous tangents. That's when I go off topic and then I indulge myself. Other stuff, extra words, pauses, utterances, stuttering, natural stuttering, and stumbling. It's been a while since I talked about stumbling over my own words, but I just did it there by accident. I mean, it's not intentional. Like, I'm sorry, words. I don't mean to stumble over you. It's not my intention to stumble over you. I would love it if you came out in whatever. I don't have the vocabulary to say, clearly efficient thoughts or like something fancy like that. Is that what lucid? There's some word like, it looks like Euclid. Is there a word called Euclid? Isn't that a famous flower? Is there a flower called the Euclid? It's EU. And then there's like a form of geometry, right? Euclidean? Maybe. Anyone out there? I don't even know. Oh, you like it now. Like when someone gets to the point, they're not Euclidean. But there's a word like that, I think, out there. And not in my brain, though. It's out there, somewhere out there, beneath the sun and stars, this 501 sang. But some of you might be wondering, what in the Don Bluth are you talking about? And then some of you might be like, what in the darn tootin', what, this guy doesn't know his oo from his Euclid. He doesn't know his ooks from his ukuleles and his cukes from his cucumbers. And I'd say you're correct at that. But I'm here to take your mind off of stuff. If you're new, a couple things to know. This podcast is very different. We probably already figured that out from our last discussion there. Elucidate, something like that. It's weird. I guess I have trouble with those EU words. I mean, not words from the EU, but like words that start with E and U. Also, I would like, because I'd say, wait a second, aren't those both vowels? Here's a tip. If you're going to go on that Wheel of Fortune show, know your EU words, because that would be confusing for me. I'd say, I would never think, at least I don't mean the royal I just mean me. I'd be so confused. I'd say, wait, there's words that start with an E and a U? Oh, boy. But, so this podcast is very different. What it's here for and why it's different is, I don't know exactly why it's different. That's what works about it for the people it works for. But it doesn't work right away because, of course, if you're looking for something to put you to sleep, it's a lot of the stuff out there. Maybe you've tried it. You said, well, that's too serious or that's too soothing. Or, I don't know, I just didn't enjoy that. Yeah, the Sleep With Me is a bit different than most other stuff meant to put you to sleep. So it does take a few tries to get used to. And you say, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of get that now. So give it a few tries and see how it goes. It's a podcast you don't really listen to. So you may be used to listening to bedtime stories or, regular podcasts or something. This is a podcast you're just supposed to humor me and go, no, it's Euclid. It's whatever the correct word is. Scoots, I think you're thinking of tulip, not Euclid's. And Pythagoras, and none of that other stuff. That sounds like it was something your brain made up. And I say, are you sure? I'm pretty sure there's Euclidean geometry. I don't know about the other stuff. I'm pretty sure there is. I mean, I'm going to have to Google it later that there's a flower called the Euclid, but maybe not. Maybe it's not pronounced Euclidean. But, so this is a podcast you don't really listen to. You say, there he goes again. This kid doesn't know his. What about words that start with the U-E? Use. Carry use, but that's EWE, I think, or something. Okay, so, it's a podcast you don't really listen to. Just barely pay attention. Listen to me loosely, like I'm just out of focus. Like you can, even though you might be able to hear me, I'm not really making any sense. But the other side of it is this isn't really a podcast to put you to sleep. It's here to keep you company while you fall asleep. So if you can't sleep, you actually could listen for company or a little bit of a distraction. I'll be here to the very end. That's my promise to you. Whether you're awake or asleep, I'm here to barely take your mind off stuff. So those are the first two things that new listeners need to know. Don't really pay me any mind, and I'm more here to be your friend than to put you to sleep. You fall asleep at your leisure. That's why the shows are about an hour. The other things that can throw new people off are the structure of the show, which is also different. The show starts off with a greeting, friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Then we move on to business, like sponsor support, listener support, and that stuff. That's how we're able to bring you the show free. Then there's an intro. The intro, and again, I saw this online again where someone said the whole first 30 minutes of the show is ads, which just is not true. And I think maybe it's from people just skipping around. So the show starts off, greetings about 2 minutes. Then there's about 4 minutes or 6 minutes of business, various types of business. Then from a minute 6 to minute 8 to about minute 20 to 24 is the intro, which is all confused meanders and me introducing the show. And that, I can see why people would think it's business, because I'm just kind of talking about nothing, or that's how some people feel. But really, the intro serves more than one purpose. It's to introduce new people to the show. But if you're a regular listener, you say, oh, I can already start barely listening because Scoots is going to kind of cover the same territory in a different way. But I know I can listen because every intro is different, even though they're similar. And then what listeners do, most listeners, not every listener, and there's no right or wrong way, but like they listen to the intro as they're getting ready for bed or as they're unwinding or as they're falling asleep. So it eases you into bedtime. My thing is, if I started the show with just a story, it wouldn't really give you a chance to unwind. And then maybe your brain would start being like, wait a second, what about that list of groceries? Isn't there a better way to do that? You've been doing it wrong the whole time. How come you don't use a grocery list? And you say, okay, I'm trying to listen to this bedtime story here. So if I ease you into bedtime, it just gives you a little bit more space between those voices or the parts of your day that are trying to keep up with you at bedtime. You can always skip the intro. You just start at around 20, 24 minutes. Then there's business for a few minutes. Then there's a story. Tonight it'll be our second episode of our episodically modular serialized series, which is like a live, what do they call that? Live play or something? It's where we're listening in to some characters playing a game as characters. Role-playing game, live play or something. I don't know what they call it. One day I'll realize it. So then there'll be our story. Then there's some thank yous at the end. So that's the structure of the show. And those are the rules around the show. I mean, are the kind of things to remember. The other thing is I make the show is because two reasons. I've been there, tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble, getting to sleep, trouble, staying asleep. And so I know how it feels in the deep dark of night. It gets on my nerves. Or I know what it's like to have what I call brain bots, which are these voices that crop up at bedtime from the past or the present or the future. And they got a laundry list. They want to talk to you about grocery lists or whatever, something if that part of you feels like you forgot to do. So that's one reason I make the show. The other reason I make the show is because you deserve a good night's sleep. You deserve a place where you can get some rest and some relaxation, a good night's sleep. You deserve a bedtime you're not wondering about or dreading. That's how it used to be for me. And that's really what I get joy from, is knowing even if I can't make bedtime something you look forward to, that you don't dread it, that I take a little bit of the rigmarole out of it, that I drain the balloon of seriousness. And you say, this is really a high compliment. I'm not kidding. You say, well, at least I got Scoots there. In any other context, a person would be like, make a Charlie Brown face or oh boy, Eeyore. But in my case, they say, that's great. Yeah, at least you got me because I'm here for you. I'm here to just barely keep you company. That's really my job. And it's an important job to me. Now, I guess the other side of it, like I said earlier, is that I'm not everybody's cup of tea. The show is very different. It tends to grow on you. Or, I mean, a lot of people have very strong reactions, non-positive ones, and they say, okay, it's not going to work for you. That's fine. There's tons of other sleep podcasts out there and other sleep solutions. But I would say give it a few tries because it's really harmless. All sleep podcast, it's like I'm just here trying to put you to sleep. So give it a few tries. It's free and see how it goes. And this isn't an agenda. It's just that out of every 10 listeners, I'd say 8 or 9 have said, hey, it took me a few tries to get used to the show because it's so different. Now I listen every night or I listen all night. Or, people support the show because they get so much out of it. So just give it a few tries because, And I mean, it's different too because for me, there's been so many sleep solutions or sleep ideas or stuff that's supposed to work, and some stuff doesn't, and it can be frustrating because you just want to get a good night's sleep. You just want a place where you can rest. So I make the show, because you deserve a good night's sleep and because I've been there. And if you can get a good night's sleep, the world's going to be a better place for everybody, and that'll be nice. So I think that's it. I mean, I really appreciate you checking the show out. Give it a few tries and see how it goes. But yeah, thanks for coming by. I work really hard at You're in a Nice Drive, and here's a couple of ways I'm able to bring this podcast twice a week. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. And what I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake. It could be things, whatever it is. If it's things on your mind that you're thinking about. So whatever's keeping you awake, thoughts, things on your mind from the past, present, or future, or just there. Calculations. Holy cow. Calculations and calculators, stay out of my bed, please. There's somewhere out there, there's hopefully a scientific calculator that said, Scoots, I thought we had something. And I say, yeah, in proper context, but not in my bed. Well, I don't know, Scoots, I thought I was a solar calculator. Are you one of those solar calculators that works like, here's another technology I'll have to explain to my daughter and she'll laugh hysterically. But actually, let's come back to that because holy cow, talk about how come how come there are now tons of like journals, like long form articles glorifying solar calculators? And you'll understand why. I'm beginning to, there was that movie about the electric car before this current generation of electric cars. And I'm beginning to wonder if they weren't looking in the wrong place. You say, who forgot to glorify the solar calculator? Well, it won't be me. When people, one day when they look back at underrated things we never appreciated, you say, Scoots, didn't you just say that you don't want any calculators in your bed? And it sounds like you turned down some sort of relationship with a calculator. Was it a sentient calculator or just one you're projecting meaning onto? Well, of course, I was projecting it onto there because, anyway, there's new lists. So if your thoughts are keeping you awake, hopefully we'll get back to the solar calculators. Thoughts keeping you awake. It could be feelings, anything emotionally coming up for you. It could be physical sensations. It could be your schedule, your family. Whatever it is that's keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off of that and keep you company while you fall asleep. And I have a certain method like we kind of use for Sleep With Me. I guess kind of use is the best way to do. So here's what I'm thinking I'm going to do, or here's what I normally do every episode. But I guess when I say here's what I'm thinking, see if this will work for you if you're new. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. So a voice that you're hearing, not traditionally a soothing voice, but a voice that may soothe. It's more of to distract you. So I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm using lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. Pointless meanders. I mean, we just got one with a superfluous tangent in there. And those are kind of things that you use, filler words, unformed sentences, a lot of different tangents, all that stuff to keep you company while you fall asleep. Now, if you're new, a couple of things I want to run by here or to make you aware of. This is a podcast you don't really listen to. It's a podcast you barely pay attention to. It's just kind of there in the background. And you're kind of listening and you're saying, solar calculators. I think I saw one of those. Or some of you are saying, I remember those, they would work as soon as you opened them up in almost any light. And they also had a battery. And that was like in 1984 or 1991 or 1978. I don't know what year it was, but it could have been one of those years. And suddenly you're saying to yourself, wait a second, Scoots might have a point there. Those calculators worked. That's undisputed. Okay, but if we're getting into SAT questions, some of those calculators worked that I remember. So that's the kind of logic that you say, well, it's not faulty logic. I wouldn't call it traditional logic either. I would call it logic. Is there something called like logic-like or logic-esque? No. Okay, well, that's the kind of logic I have to propose that. So it's a podcast that is like just out of focus. So you kind of barely listen to it. I think I said that. Then the other thing is this podcast doesn't really put you to sleep. It's just here to keep you company. And it's this weird kind of keeping you company. It's just like these calculators I'll hopefully talk about. Like, talk about a tree falling in the woods. Those calculators were always ready to go. And again, very much like Sleep With Me, you just kind of barely needed them, at least for me. I know there's people out there, and holy cow, I'm thankful for you, that are good at calculations. I have dyslexia, so it's never been my forte, but... like I always say, my forte, Will Forte, but not calculators. Will Forte using a calculator? I'd like to see that. I think that would be pretty entertaining. Or Will Forte walking around. Will Forte, calculations of Will Forte. That could be hit when he does a speaking tour one day. That also rhymed unintentionally. So... oh, I'm not really here to put you to sleep. I'm here to keep you company while you drift off. That's why the shows are over an hour, so you have plenty of time. You say, oh, no rush to fall asleep and no pressure to listen. So that's like different than most podcasts. So I'm not sure how to feel. And I say, totally understandable. This podcast is very different. And with most sleep stuff, if you come here skeptical or doubtful or not even sure, that's a normal way to arrive at Sleep With Me. And for your first listener to, it can be a little bit, not jarring, but if there was a softer version of that, a little bit, you say, well, I'm kind of confused. And I say, well, that sounds like you're in the right place. But most regular listeners say, give the show 2 or 3 tries before you give up on it. Just because that's how long it takes to say, oh, wait, I don't listen. Oh, wait, the show never... it's always started and it never starts at the same time. Okay, just like that the solar calculator. Also, Scoot says stuff like makes associations that probably aren't associated like that. You say, yeah, it's like not a forced metaphor, but I'm putting square, for metaphor, not even metaphorically. I take square metaphors and put them in round holes all the time. That's how I organize my metaphors. Then I can never get them out. I say that metaphor's stuck in there. And I say, because it's a square metaphor in a round hole. I say, well, it's a cubby. That's my metaphor cubby. It's a metaphorical cubby? No, it's real. It's it's real in my imagination. It's real in my imagination. So it's not a metaphor. I don't think. But yeah, you're right. I did shove, and there are round metaphors and square holes. Those are a little bit easier to get out. And don't even get into my octagonal metaphors and my triangular ones, because they're jammed up. Oh boy, I'll be here all day. Luckily, I just invented something new. Metaphor lubricant. It lubricates your metaphors. And also metaphors can drink it, which is like metaphor after hours. My new book. Holy cow, I just thought of 5 ideas in one. Or metaphors after dark. I guess it would go metaphors after hours would be the like 10 p.m. time slot. And then the 12 a.m. one would be metaphors after dark. Or maybe not. Maybe it goes the other way. Anyway. Where was I? Oh, don't really listen to me. Give it a few tries. Structurally, this can really throw people off. And I try to talk about it a lot because I feel like, well, I guess if you have a strong reaction to this podcast, you're like, it's just not going to work for you. But we really haven't changed anything in the structure of the show in many, many years. So here's how the show goes. It starts off with a greeting, so you feel welcome, seen, and invited in. Then there's business. There's businesses supporting the listeners. There's our sponsors and our show support and support when we support community or causes. So all that's at the beginning. Then there's the intro. So you get like a minute of tease, like the greeting, then a few minutes of business and sponsor stuff, then about 16 to 20 minutes of intro. And I'll come back to the intro. Then there's business, like another 4 or 5 minutes of business. And then tonight we'll talk about The Mandalorian. And then there's thank yous at the end of the show. So that's a structure show. The intro, sometimes, I don't know, like, I guess some people probably listen, then they try to fast forward through the intro and they kind of realize that then they get frustrated because the intro goes on and on and on. Then they get to the business and then, so some people are like, oh, the show is just like 20 minutes of business. And it's like, no. Or why is there a 20-minute intro in it, like a 70-minute podcast? And I say, well, that's what I'm here to explain right now. So the intro is a way for me to introduce new people to the show. And get you comfortable. But for regular listeners, it gives and new listeners, but sometimes you have to pay, you listen the first few times. But for regular listeners, it helps them wind down. It helps them leave the day behind, give them some distance, gives them something familiar to hear, but it's different every time so that your brain bots or whatever's keeping you awake can't quite adjust. So the intro is different every time, but it kind of has the same general feel. So you say, well, I can kind of barely listen because I know it's going to be kind of familiar, but kind of different. So some listeners like start getting ready for bed during the intro. Some listeners are in bed, getting comfortable or drifting off. Some listeners are doing some other relaxing activity. Some people start listening in the middle of the night when they wake up. Some people listen all night long. About 3% of people start the show at 20 or 22 minutes and listen there. And that gets you kind of closer at the beginning of the Mandalorian talk tonight. And then some people support the show on Patreon. They get story-only episodes. So it's kind of like as you become a regular listener, you say, oh, okay, well, I like to, pet my pets and, whatever, play a game of solitaire with real cards. And then I go to sleep while I'm listening to the intro. And so that's kind of the intro. And then, so it does, for new people, it may be like, when's this podcast start? And I say, well, it's a sleep podcast. So it kind of is always starting and never starting, like I said earlier, at the same time. So that's that. The other things I want you to know if you're new or if you're a regular listener or if you're, your sleep is important to me because you deserve a good night's sleep. You really do. You deserve a place you can rest. You deserve some relief from the day. You deserve a bedtime where you actually feel neutral about it or you look forward to it versus dreading it like I have in the past. And if you get some sleep and some rest, you could, your life's more manageable and maybe you could be out there in the world flourishing. And any of those things makes the world a better place to be in. So that's important. It's important for your world to be more habitable. You know what I mean? And that's important to me. And one of the reasons it's important to me, other than that's just a fact, is that I've been there, dreading bedtime or waking up, all those things. So I know how it feels, those desperate feelings that can come up or other feelings or the feelings during the day. So that's another reason why it's important to me. So that's why I make the show. And then I guess I was going to talk about this. So here's the thing, because we have a pretty giant diversity of listeners. I just want to talk about these calculators and just try to parse this out. So once upon a time, at some point when I was probably in high school, no, I guess grammar, I don't know, sometime in the 80s. So grammar school or whatever they call it, elementary, grade school. They came out with these calculators that were solar powered, but just like they have now, like they say, hey, your house is solar powered. But these things actually worked. I mean, I don't know what the first or second generation was, but here's the thing. They were, as far as I remember, they were unbelievably low cost, the same cost as regular calculator. And these calculators worked even with just fluorescent lights in your classroom. They would work right away because a lot of times they had it, you'd open it up, it had like a leatherette thing or it had a button. Some had a battery and the solar power thing, and other ones only had the solar powered thing. And I realized at first this could be ridiculous, but I mean, this is kind of thing that why I make Sleep With Me, but pause for a second. You know, the whole thing with solar, the promise of solar energy, right? And I know we're getting there, but it's been this dream, like solar powered house. And then you could that your house is like kind of self-sufficient with the sun and you got battery to store it or whatever. And then you got solar powered other stuff. But we don't have a lot of other stuff that's solar powered. But you see, well, why, like, how the heck did they have, like, it's always this one thing. It's like, why was only the calculator? I think they probably had solar powered watches. I don't know why those didn't take off. I mean, I guess it would have needed a battery, and maybe the battery technology wasn't there, but it just seemed like this perfect product. It actually worked almost all the time, even in dim light. I mean, am I just like out here on my own, or is anybody else like, that was so impressive? And even as a kid, I felt like I was using like I said, okay, we don't have lasers really, or, you know, flying cars or whatever, hover bikes or hover shoes. But you see, wow, I got this solar thing. And maybe that's why then everybody was like, why the heck aren't all our houses solar powered? So I don't know. I mean, it just makes me wonder why. Also, like I said, as great as calculators are, even the one that was, flirting with me earlier or whatever, keep them out of bed. Keep your calculators out of bed. I mean, unless you like, if that's a thing. I mean, if that's a thing for you, awesome. Holy moly. I mean, I guess I'm starting to wonder now, my back's sweating. You say, well, 1 + 1 = 2. The two of us here. See, it's right here on this calculator, my dear. And then I think you can put like words in there. Like maybe you could put love. If you had a Roman numeral calculator, you definitely could. Or like one of those scientific ones. But I never got that far in math to get to the scientific calculator. Or if I did, I said, well, I don't know if I'm going to. Anyway, so whatever your calculation is, give the show a few tries. I really hope it can help you. I really hope I can take your mind off stuff and help you fall asleep. I'm glad you're here. I really appreciate you coming by. I work really hard. I yearn and I strive. So thanks again for coming by. And here's a couple of ways I'm able to bring you the show twice a week. Thanks. All right, everybody, this is Scoots. This is a tuck you in message about Sleep With Me Plus. If you're still listening and you believe in the podcast, you see, how can I help this podcast that helps me so much? You can do that by signing up for Sleep With Me Plus. It'll help you even more because it's made with you in mind. It's like the ultimate way to listen to Sleep With Me, but it's also what enables us to produce the show. So, but I haven't been really good at getting that message out. I've tried different ways, and they just haven't been working. And so I'm changing up. I'm just reading right from the listeners who support the show, their testimonials. And this is from Katie from Oakland. Been listening to Sleep With Me for 6 or 7 years. I first started listening because I would have insomnia in the middle of the night. And the stories gave me something to keep me from thinking about the things that would wake me up even more. But now I just play it all night long, and it helps me stay asleep or at least get back to sleep quickly. I no longer have insomnia, which is everything. I've been a patron since before 2020. I recommend this podcast to everyone, especially those who can't afford more expensive interventions. I want to see this podcast continue and help others. I really love the TV retellings. TNG, Great British Baking Show are my favorites. I really like the shows I already know the plot, so I don't have to listen too carefully. And, I spend $10 a month for consistent sleep without medication or any other side effects by supporting Sleep With Me. That's cheaper than a nice glass of wine at a restaurant. So sleep is everything. Thank you for everything, Katie says. Thank you, Katie, for supporting the show. If you relate to Sleep With Me, I didn't even think about that. Like, if Sleep With Me is worth more than 2 beers to you a month or a nice glass of wine, one glass, think about it, because we could, the support goes a lot further than one glass of wine. You support the show at $14 a month. That enables us to make 8 brand new episodes. So think about it. Sign up at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Thanks, everybody.